Come along for the ride.
Hello, my name is Anna Covert, and this is The Solar Coaster, the wild ride through the solar industry told by the people who are living it every day. And today we're diving into two stories that really caught my attention this week because together they reveal something fascinating about where the energy industry is headed. But before we get into that, I want to introduce my co host. Alex Herrera is the owner of Sun Energy Today, a solar company based in Arizona. Alex works on the front lines of the energy transition, helping homeowners and businesses navigate the constantly shifting world of energy policy, pricing, and technology. Alex, welcome back.
Thanks, Anna. Always good to be here. And I love when we get to talk about stories like these because they show how interconnected everything in the energy world has become. Solar, AI, global electricity demand, all of these things are colliding right now.
Exactly. And that's what made these two articles so interesting to read together. One talks about solar experiencing its fastest growth in a decade, which sounds amazing. But the other story points out something surprising. Global emissions are still rising, even though fossil fuel use is declining in some places. So we're in this strange moment where the clean energy transition is accelerating, but the climate challenge isn't shrinking as quickly as people expected.
Right. It's like we're sprinting forward with renewables, but the finish line keeps moving. And a big reason for that is electricity demand. The world is using more electricity than ever before.
And that brings us to the second article, because one of the biggest drivers of that demand right now is something people weren't really talking about 5 years ago: artificial intelligence. AI data centers are becoming massive electricity consumers.
Huge. I think most people don't realize how much power AI infrastructure requires. Training AI models, running cloud platforms, running thousands of GPUs simultaneously. These facilities consume enormous amounts of electricity, and they run 24 hours a day.
Which means they need massive amounts of energy, and they need it consistently. And that's where solar enters the picture, because the article talks about how AI data centers are starting to reshape the way solar power purchase agreements are structured.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. Historically, solar PPAs, power purchase agreements, were mostly driven by utilities or big corporations trying to meet sustainability goals. Companies like Google, Amazon, or Apple signing renewable energy deals. But now AI companies are entering the picture in a huge way.
And their demand is different, because these companies aren't just looking for renewable energy for sustainability branding. They actually need the electricity to power their operations.
Exactly. AI isn't just a tech trend, it's becoming an energy story. And when tech companies start building data centers the size of small cities, suddenly energy procurement becomes one of their biggest strategic decisions.
Which is why we're seeing them sign massive renewable energy deals. Solar projects, wind projects, storage projects. They're trying to secure long-term energy supply.
And they want predictable pricing. That's one of the big reasons solar PPAs are attractive. You can lock in electricity prices for 10, 15, sometimes even 20 years. For a company planning billion-dollar infrastructure investments, that predictability is incredibly valuable.
And what's interesting is how quickly this demand has appeared. AI went from a niche technology to a global infrastructure race almost overnight.
Yeah, and the grid wasn't really designed for this level of growth. Utilities are scrambling to figure out how to meet demand. Transmission lines take years to build. Power plants take years to build. But data centers are going up incredibly fast.
Which puts pressure on the entire energy system.
Exactly. And that's one reason solar is growing so quickly. Solar projects can be deployed faster than many other types of power generation. So when companies need new energy capacity quickly, solar becomes a natural option.
And that brings us back to the first article: solar experiencing its fastest growth in a decade. That's huge. But the article also makes a really important point. Even though renewables are expanding rapidly, global electricity demand is expanding even faster.
Right. Which means fossil fuels aren't disappearing overnight. They're declining in some regions, but they're still filling the gap when demand spikes.
So the reality is, we're not replacing energy systems. We're adding new ones while demand continues to rise.
Exactly. Think about what's happening simultaneously. Electric vehicles are increasing electricity demand. Buildings are electrifying heating systems. Industry is electrifying processes. And now AI is building energy hungry data centers everywhere. So the grid is under more pressure than ever.
Which means the energy transition isn't just about replacing fossil fuels. It's about expanding the entire energy system.
That's exactly right. We're basically rebuilding the global energy infrastructure while the world continues to consume more power. It's one of the largest industrial transformations in human history.
And solar is right in the middle of it.
Yeah, and from a solar company perspective, it's fascinating to watch because the conversation with customers has changed. 10 years ago, the solar conversation was mostly about saving money. Now it's about resilience, grid stability, and long term energy security.
Which makes sense. Electricity is becoming more central to the economy every year.
Exactly. And in places like Arizona, where we already have massive energy demand because of air conditioning, this shift is even more noticeable. When new industries like AI start adding to that demand, utilities have to respond quickly.
Which sometimes leads to grid congestion, interconnection delays, and infrastructure challenges.
Yeah, we're already seeing those issues across the country. Transmission bottlenecks, projects waiting years to connect to the grid. It's becoming one of the biggest constraints on renewable energy growth.
Which ironically makes distributed solar even more valuable. Because rooftop solar and local generation reduce strain on the grid.
Exactly. Instead of all electricity coming from large centralized plants, distributed energy spreads generation across thousands of rooftops and businesses. That can actually help stabilize the system.
So, in a way, the solar industry is evolving in two directions at once. Large utility scale projects powering AI infrastructure, and distributed solar helping local communities manage energy demand.
Yeah, and both are necessary because the energy transition isn't just one technology replacing another. It's an entire ecosystem evolving.
And that's why the solar industry often feels like a roller coaster.
Exactly. Policy changes, technology improvements, market shifts, everything moves quickly. One year, the big story is electric vehicles. The next year, it's AI data centers.
Which is why this podcast exists. Because the people working in this industry are experiencing that roller coaster every day.
And honestly, it's a fascinating time to be part of the energy sector. We're witnessing the transformation of the entire electricity system in real time.
And if these two articles are any indication, the next decade is going to be even more dynamic. AI will reshape electricity demand. Solar will continue expanding rapidly, and the energy transition will keep accelerating.
Which means the solar coaster ride is far from over.
Not even close. Thanks for listening to the Solar Coaster podcast. My name is Anna Covert.
And I'm Alex Herrera. See you again next week.
Solar coaster, come along for the ride.
This episode of The Solar Coaster is narrated using AI-generated technology, representing Anna Covert and Alex Herrera. The material presented is aggregated from publicly available solar industry news sources. All commentary reflects reported industry developments and does not constitute personal opinions, investment advice, or endorsements by the hosts or
Solar
producers.
Coaster is proudly sponsored by Sun Energy Today, redefining what solar means for business and infrastructure. We engineer and deliver large-scale clean energy solutions, from megawatt solar farms to advanced graphene storage, designed for resilience, performance, and measurable return. Sun Energy Today, built to power what's next. Learn more at sunenergytoday.com.